Good afternoon. You're watching a special edition of The Big Story. I'm Haryanto Diman coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong will address the nation on the Covid-19 situation in Singapore in a few minutes at 4 p.m. In his Facebook post today, PM Lee said while the situation here is under control, the government will take additional steps to further manage it. He added that Singapore's food supply is secure and adequate and reminded Singaporeans to just buy what is needed. He also called on for everyone to stay calm and united during this challenging period. Now you can watch PM Lee's address live right here. In the meantime, we have Professor Teo Yik Ying. He's the Dean of the Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health at the National University of Singapore. Hi Prof, it's good to have you back here, Prof. Now Prof, latest developments in Singapore, 3 new clusters identified and 1 more death earlier today. What role can Singaporeans play in helping to manage the situation?
I think it really comes back down to the 3 simple things that Singaporeans can do. The first is if you are in the public spaces, practice physical distancing. That means staying at least 1 meter apart from any strangers or any other people around you. Second, it's stay at home if possible. Absolutely necessary, then you go out. Otherwise, if you can work from home, telecommute, work from home. If otherwise you don't need to go out, stay at home. The third is really around personal hygiene. Continue to pay attention to your personal hygiene, washing your hands with soap and water, coughing and sneezing responsibly, and that means you cover your mouth and your nose when you have to, and also take your temperature, monitor your temperature regularly twice a day. Back to you.
Now, Prof, early on, we are seeing more clusters, local cases, as well as unlinked ones. Are we at the peak of the situation here, or do you think we have some more way to go before a real peak happens here in Singapore?
Well, I certainly hope that we are at the peak, because that means that we are on a downward climb. But to be honest, I think that we still have a rough road ahead. The next 2 weeks will be very tough, and we will really need all the citizens to take the responsibility and be responsible for the actions. Equally, I should also remind everyone that this is one of the waves that we are seeing. And I do expect that over the next 3, 6, 9 months, there will be new waves coming that the country will need to think of new measures or additional or replace certain measures to control.
Of course, for those of you who are watching us live right now, we have Professor Teo Yik Ying. He's the Dean of the Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health at the National University of Singapore. We now have PM Lee, who is going to be addressing us very soon at 4 p.m. And of course, you can watch PM Lee's address here as well. Now, Prof, back to you, Prof. Many reports are saying that the coronavirus hits the vulnerable groups the hardest, and there seems to be a perception that the younger people will not be easily infected. Okay, looks like PM is now live. Prof, we'll get back to you. We'll now cross live to PM Lee's address.
My fellow Singaporeans, good afternoon. I last spoke to you on COVID-19 3 weeks ago. Since then, the number of new cases daily has begun to rise. We used to see fewer than 10 new cases a day. But in the last 2 weeks, despite our best efforts, we have routinely had more than 50 new cases daily. Initially, many of the new cases were imported from overseas, mostly returning Singaporeans. Then last week, we began to have more local cases. Furthermore, despite our good contact tracing, for nearly half of these cases, we don't know where or from whom the person caught the virus. And this suggests that there are more people out there who are infected, but who have not been identified. And they may be passing the virus unknowingly to others. In the last few days, we have also discovered several clusters at foreign worker dormitories and 1 at a nursing home. These are very worrying because large numbers of people live together in dormitories and nursing homes. A single case can quickly lead to a large cluster. Furthermore, nursing home patients are mostly old and frail and very vulnerable to the virus. As the situation developed over the past weeks, we have tightened our safe distancing measures progressively. Singaporeans have responded well, calmly and responsibly, and made adjustments in their daily lives. By working together, we have kept the outbreak under control. But looking at the trend, I am worried that unless we take further steps, things will gradually get worse, or another big cluster may push things over the edge. I discussed this with a multi-ministerial task force. We have decided that instead of tightening incrementally over the next few weeks, we should make a decisive move now to preempt escalating infections. We will therefore impose significantly stricter measures. This is like a circuit breaker. It will help to reduce the risk of a big outbreak occurring. And it should also help to gradually bring our numbers down. And this, in turn, will allow us to relax some of the measures. This circuit breaker will apply for 1 month in the first instance. The task force is holding a press conference immediately after I finish speaking to you to explain the details. But let me give you the key points. First, we will close most workplaces, except for essential services and key economic sectors. Food establishments, markets and supermarkets, clinics, hospitals, utilities, transport, and key banking services will remain open. These are essential services. We also should not disrupt economic sectors that are strategic or form part of a global supply chain. People working in these industries can continue to go to work with safe distancing measures in place. But most other work premises must close. If the person can work from home, he should do so, telecommute. But others will not be able to, including foreign workers on construction sites and in shipyards. These workers live in dormitories, and we will make arrangements to look after them. The closure of workplaces will take effect from next Tuesday. This will ensure that most of our workforce stays at home and limits their physical interaction to as few people as possible. Second, we will also move to full home-based learning in our schools and institutes of higher learning. We started with 1 day of home-based learning this week. This has gone smoothly, with some teething issues being resolved. The Ministry of Education will work with the schools to implement full home-based learning starting next Wednesday. All preschool and student care centers will also be closed, but they will provide limited services for children of parents who have to continue working and are unable to make alternative care arrangements. Third, we will tighten restrictions on movements and gatherings of people. It boils down to 3 things. First, stay at home as much as possible. Second, avoid socializing with others beyond your own household. Gatherings should be confined to your household. Avoid visiting even your extended families who are not staying with you, especially if they are elderly or vulnerable. Third, go out only to do essential things. For work, if you are in essential services or in a key economic sector. To buy food at markets, or to take out from restaurants and hawker centers, or to exercise in the neighborhood park, keeping a safe distance from others. The spirit of these measures is to get all of us to minimize physical contact. If we don't go out, if we avoid contact with others, then the virus won't be able to spread. It's as simple as that. But I know this is very hard to do. It's very hard as a practical matter in places like hawker centers and wet markets, because it's difficult to practice safe distancing, especially on the weekends when it's crowded. It will help if we all adjust our habits. For example, do our marketing on weekdays instead of weekends to avoid the crowd. We will also deploy more safe distancing ambassadors to encourage people not to crowd together. So please cooperate with them. Safe distancing is also hard for a psychological and emotional reason. It goes very much against our human instincts. It is in our nature to want to socialize, to be close to those we are talking to take comfort in the warmth and company of friends and family. I fully understand this, but I hope you will also understand why we all have to take social distancing extremely seriously in this period. Because this is the only effective way to slow the transmission of the virus so that we gradually bring our numbers down. It's also the best way to keep our families safe, and particularly to protect our seniors from getting ill. So please, bear with the painful adjustments that we have to make. Each and every one of us can and must do our part to keep everyone in Singapore safe from COVID-19. Let me now say a few words in Malay and then in Mandarin. Saudara-saudari sekalian, dalam beberapa minggu lepas, bilangan kes baru COVID-19 telah meningkat. Kami memantau perkembangan ini dengan teliti dan mengetatkan langkah berjaga-jaga secara beransur-ansur. Rata-rata, rakyat Singapura mematuhi arahan. Bagi masyarakat Melayu Islam, anda telah membuat beberapa pengorbanan dan penyesuaian yang besar seperti kaum lain juga. Anda faham kenapa masjid ditutup. Anda mengamalkan salam mufti dan menundakan majlis keramaian yang penting seperti majlis perkahwinan. Seperti yang diterangkan mufti, masyarakat Islam juga perlu membuat penyesuaian bagi Ramadan dan bulan Syawal yang bakal menjelang. Saya sendiri kecewa kita tidak akan ada bazar di Geylang Serai tahun ini. Kesal sekali. Tetapi ini tidak boleh dielakkan. Terima kasih kerana memberikan kerjasama anda. Keadaan masih terkawal, tetapi pemerintah bimbang sekiranya kes baru terus meningkat, mungkin kemudian bilangan kes akan melonjak dengan tinggi. Oleh itu, kami telah memutuskan untuk melaksanakan langkah berjaga-jaga yang lebih ketat selama sebulan. Kami akan menutup sebahagian besar tempat kerja, sekolah dan prasekolah. Tetapi perkhidmatan penting seperti pasar dan pasar raya, tempat makan dan pengangkutan awam akan terus dibuka. Anda masih boleh mendapatkan barang-barang dapur anda dan masih boleh membeli makanan di pusat penjajah. Kami juga akan menutup sekolah dan pusat prasekolah. Saya harap ibu bapa akan terus membimbing anak-anak anda ketika di rumah supaya pendidikan mereka tidak terjejas. kami akan perketat langkah-langkah untuk memastikan jarak selamat. Sebelum ini, kami pernah katakan bahawa orang ramai boleh berkumpul asalkan tidak melebihi 10 orang. Tetapi sekarang, kami mahu anda duduk di rumah jika boleh dan elakkan daripada bergaul selain daripada lingkungan keluarga anda sendiri. Saya tahu ini suatu yang sangat susah untuk dilakukan kerana kita semua mahukan teman dan berhubung dengan orang lain serta berbual dan beramah tamah bersama rakan-rakan dan saudara mara kita. Tetapi saya harap anda boleh bersabar dengan apa yang kita harus laksanakan dan patuhi peraturan demi keselamatan anda sendiri dan kita semua. 各位同胞，过去几个星期，冠状病毒的确诊病例逐步增加，我们密切关注事态的发展，并且随着疫情的演变，逐步加紧防控措施，以保障国人的健康。非常感谢大家的合作，遵守相关的规定。 现在的情况继续受到控制，但我担心，如果这种趋势持续下去，我们迟早会面临病例大幅度增加的风险。因此，我们决定暂时采取更严格的措施，尽量减少人与人之间的接触，防止病毒扩散。这些措施将为期1个月。 我们将下令暂时关闭提供非必要服务的商店，但是巴萨、超市、小贩中心、餐馆和公共交通等基本服务将照常营业。你还是可以买到日常用品、蔬菜、肉类等，也还可以向摊主购买食物带回家享用。我们也将关闭学校 和学前教育中心，但我们会给你时间去安排。在关闭期间，孩子由谁照料？我们会为那些还是需要工作或是无法安排人手照顾孩子的父母亲提供协助。教育部长稍后会详细说明。此外，我们将加强安全距离措施。 过去的做法是，人们可以继续有聚会，只要人数不超过10个。但现在，我们希望你尽可能留在家里，除了与一起同住的家庭成员以外，请避免出门参加社交活动。我知道有些是大家庭，亲人也住得很近。不过在这1个月，也请大家忍耐一下，在这期间， 请不要互相拜访、串门或搬来搬去住。请暂时把住所定在一个地方，但希望大家继续以其他方式保持联络，例如视讯聊天或打电话，甚至还可以写信。我知道要严格遵守安全距离措施并不容易。 毕竟，社交活动是我们日常生活的一个重要部分。我们都需要通过社交感受到亲情和友情的温暖，都渴望有亲人和朋友在身边陪伴，相互扶持，排忧解闷，谈天说地。尤其是我们的乐龄人士，之前政府不得已已经取消了大部分 他们喜欢参与的活动，他们不能去上课，跟老朋友一起喝茶聊天、唱歌跳舞、做运动，可能会觉得生活很单调。幸好网上和电视上有很多节目，让年长人士在家也可以继续过精彩的生活。 例如华文媒体集团每天就推出一系列网上直播，邀请人民协会的教练和老师继续陪大家晨运、学习烹饪和唱歌。8频道也有电视节目教大家运动、分享保健贴士等等，让人们待在家里也不会无聊。所以在对抗疫情的非常时期，为了全民的健康，请大家必须暂时忍一忍，没有必要的话就不要出门。这么做既是照顾好自己，也是为了保护好我们的年长家人以及体弱的人士，避免他们受到感染。我预请大家积极配合这些新的防疫措施，齐心对抗疫情，保障我们的家人和新加坡的安全。I decided to speak to you directly today to explain why we need to make this major move now, but also to reassure you that things will be all right. Essential services will continue running so that all of us can cope with this new situation as we batten down to fight this virus. We have enough food supplies to last us through this period and beyond. You can still shop at the supermarket or wet market, and you need not rush to stock up for weeks at a time. You can still buy food from your favorite hawker centers or coffee shop, though you will have to take out and eat at home with your family rather than hang out and eat outside with your friends. I know these measures will impact our workers and businesses severely. This is already a very difficult time for them. We will help them come through this. On Monday in Parliament, DPM Heng Swee Keat will announce additional support for households and businesses over and above what was provided in the 2 earlier budgets. We will also legislate to require landlords to pass on property tax rebates in full to their tenants. We will also pass new temporary legislation to let businesses and individuals defer certain contractual obligations for a period, such as paying rent, repaying loans, or completing work. Besides implementing this circuit breaker, we also are rethinking our advice on face masks. Up to now, the government has advised the general public that you only need to wear a mask if you are not feeling well, and this is to protect others from your germs. This was based on scientific advice and guidelines from the World Health Organization. Also, we did not have community spread in Singapore then, so it was very unlikely for you to run into anyone with COVID-19 on the street, much less be infected by them. Nevertheless, the government gave each household 4 surgical masks to use in case you got sick and to give people peace of mind. Now, the situation is changing. We now think there are some cases out there in the community going undetected, though probably still not that many. We also now have evidence that an infected person can show no symptoms and yet still pass on the virus to others. This is why the World Health Organization is reviewing the issue of face masks, and so is the US Communicable Diseases Center, CDC. Therefore, we will no longer discourage people from wearing masks. Wearing a mask may help to protect others in case you have the virus but don't know it. This is so that you keep your droplets to yourself when you sneeze or when you speak or cough. It can also protect yourself a little better, especially if you're elderly or vulnerable because of pre-existing health conditions. We still want to conserve surgical masks for people who really need them, healthcare workers in clinics and hospitals. For everyone else, in a community setting, alternatives like reusable masks will give some added protection. So from this Sunday, the government will distribute reusable masks to all households. Meanwhile, many community groups have been making and distributing reusable masks for the elderly and vulnerable. I applaud these efforts. They show our community spirit and mutual care. But remember, mask or no mask, you still need to wash your hands and keep a safe distance away from other people. The next few weeks will be pivotal. Even after these stepped-up measures, the number of cases will quite likely still go up in the next few days. There can be cases who have already been infected earlier, except they have not yet shown symptoms or not yet gone to see their doctor. But if we keep our efforts up, within a few weeks, we should be able to bring the numbers under control and bring the numbers down and get into a more sustainable position. We will keep on doing our utmost to protect every Singaporean from COVID-19. Many people have been working tirelessly for the past 2 months. Our nurses and doctors, our contact tracers and healthcare staff. We thank them all for their efforts and sacrifices. Now, we are all enlisted to join them on the front line. It will be a long fight, but if any country can see this through, it is Singapore. We have the resources, we have the determination, we are united. By helping one another through this, we will prevail and emerge stronger. Thank you.
We just heard from Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Now, he said most workplaces will be closed except those essential services and key economic industries. This will take effect from Tuesday. Second, Singapore will move to full home-based learning for schools and institutes of higher learning, or IHLs. This starts on Wednesday. But essential services such as food establishments, markets and supermarkets, clinics, hospitals, utilities, transport and key banking services will remain open. We'll now cross over to the Multi-ministerial Task Force press conference.
2 days ago, one more patient has passed away this morning from complications.
It's
due to
a
COVID-19.
formative experience.
Our thoughts are with the family. There are also an increasing number of unlinked cases here. We have progressively put in place safe distancing measures, including telecommuting for workplaces. In view of the trend of increasing local transmission and the number of unlinked cases, the task force has decided that we must make a decisive move at this point to further curb the spread of the infection. From 7th April until 4th of May, both inclusive, we will put in place enhanced set of safe distancing measures as a circuit breaker to slow the infection. The aim is to reduce much more significantly movements and interactions in both public and private places. To do this, we will move towards a full home-based learning for our schools and close most physical workplace premises, save for those providing essential services and in selected economic sectors which are critical for our local and the global supply chains. My colleagues from the task force will provide more information on the various measures shortly. The key advice for Singaporeans is to stay home. Go out only for essential services. And if you need to go out, avoid close contacts with crowds or with people. If it is not possible to avoid close contact, wear a reusable mask will be helpful. We understand that these measures are very difficult ones and will create a lot of inconveniences. We will have to change our habits and our daily routines. But these measures are important and necessary to protect Singaporeans and keep us and our family members safe. The government will do what we can to help Singaporeans tide over this period. We will announce additional measures next week to provide support for businesses and for households. Each of us must play our part and keep a lookout for one another. Stay united, and we can get through this together. Thank you, and let me say a few words in Mandarin. 目前，全球超过200个国家地区已经出现超过100万起2019冠状病毒的疾病。本地的病例在前天也达到了1000起。今天有多一个病人因为冠状病毒引发的并发症，在凌晨的时分病逝。我仅此在这里向他的家属表达深切的慰问。本地那些无关联的病例也逐渐的在增加，这是令人担心的趋向。所以跨部门工作小组检讨了病毒的传播的这个趋向之后，决定在这个时候采取更果断的行动，以控制疫情的蔓延。从4月7号，就是下个星期二开始，一直到5月4号，我们将进一步的推行提升的保持安全距离措施，希望能够阻断本地感染病例的上升趋势。工作小组的其他同僚接下来会提供各项措施的详情。我们需要全体国人的合作，待在家中，避免不必要的外出，除非你是出去购买一些日常的必需品，或者是应用一些必须的服务，比如要去看医生。那么有必要出外的时候呢，尽可能避免与群众接触。如果无法避免与群众接触，可以戴上那个可以重新使用的口罩，来对自己加强保护。这些措施我们知道会为国人带来许多的不便，但是为了保护所有的国人，让我们每个人还有我们每个至亲都能够感到安全，这些措施都是必要的。让我们一起来共同的努力，扮演各自的角色，也继续互相扶持、互相照应，一起度过这一次的这个时期。谢谢大家。接着下来，我邀请我的同僚黃宣財部長表達他的演講。I'll now call upon Minister Lawrence Wong to make his comments.
Good evening. It has been 1 week since we last put in place quite a comprehensive set of safe distancing measures. Our original thought was that we could perhaps take some time to see if the measures implemented since last Friday were having effect in slowing down the spread of the virus. But we looked at the situation on a daily basis, and we decided that we couldn't afford to wait any further because there are very worrying trends. The number of unlinked local cases in particular continues to rise, and they now make up nearly half of the total local cases you see every day. This suggests that there are very likely undetected or hidden cases within our community. And it also means that we are likely to see more cases popping up. At today's level of infection, our hospital capacity is still able to cope with the cases that are coming in. But we do not want to wait for a situation where the cases rise and sharply, and then we get overwhelmed. So we decided not to wait, but to make a decisive preemptive move now and put in place this major circuit breaker to try and break the chain of transmission. We are very mindful that these are painful, difficult measures that will bring about inconvenience and disruption to people's lives and livelihoods. We hope Singaporeans will understand, why these are necessary to protect ourselves, our family members, and our fellow citizens. So it's absolutely critical that we take the measures seriously. We have seen over the past weeks, each time we made incremental moves and introduced new measures, Singaporeans are responsible, we comply with them, but there will always be a group that tries to push the rules to its limits. So when we say no more than 10 people in order to reduce the size of social gatherings, people ask, is it okay if I add one more person, and just try and meet the rules, but still, as far as possible, I want to get together with my friends. Or when we say, let's have safe distancing 1 meter apart at F&B outlets, you will still find places where people try to sit close together, even though we have clearly set out the guidelines, but they still want to eat in rather than take out when the place is crowded. Or for that matter, when we recently introduced telecommuting, many have started. I think the telecommuting rates have improved, but you will still find employees and staff saying, my boss, my employer tells me I cannot telecommute, even though it's quite clear my work allows me to do so. So all of these behaviors and habits are really counterproductive, because we must assume that the virus is circulating within our own population. There will be undetected carriers amongst us. It could be any one of us. So each and every interaction we have with others may well be the link that causes the virus to spread and causes a new infection cluster. That's why we are now doing this major circuit breaker this time round and making it very clear. The rules are simple, and we hope everyone takes this seriously. Stay at home. There's no more rule of 10 or whatever number. Just stay at home. Avoid interactions with anyone outside of your family members living together with you in the same household. Beyond that, you can go out for essential things. If your work is essential, if you need to buy some food and groceries. But if you go out and you are unable to avoid close contact with others when you are out, then wear a mask. So these are simple rules, and we hope everyone will abide by them. We are really in, as we have said repeatedly, for a long fight, because even with these measures in place, we must expect the cases, the infected cases, to continue to rise. They will still be high for a while, and they may even go up in the next few days, because there is a lag each time we put in place a new measure. It will take time before we see the benefits of the measures that are put in place. The later set of measures will continue for at least a month. If we are all disciplined about the guidelines, uphold them not just based on the guidelines, but uphold the spirit of what we are trying to do, then there is a chance by the end of the month we can roll back some of these measures. And as I've said before, we are rolling back, not resetting back to zero, but rolling back still with some stringent precautions in place, but perhaps not as tight as what we are introducing today. But if the situation does not improve, if there is poor compliance, poor implementation, then we do have to be prepared for this set of measures to continue even beyond a month. So really, we are all in this together now. We are all enlisted in this fight against the virus. So let's hunker down and beat the virus together.
Thank you. Let me now invite my Director of Medical Services, Professor Kenneth Mak, to give an update on the medical perspective. Prof.
Thank you, Minister. As of the 2nd of April 2020, we have 65 new cases, 9 of which are imported cases. 39 cases are linked to previous cases, whether individually or with clusters, and 17 are as yet unlinked cases. Epidemiological investigations and contact tracing continues to see whether we can establish further links in these 17 cases. In total, we have 1,114 cases of COVID-19 infection diagnosed in Singapore, and 473 of these cases remain currently admitted in our hospitals. 25 patients remain in the ICU, and our doctors and nurses continue to look after them very carefully. We've discharged 235 patients from acute hospital care. 401 patients have been transferred across to either a community isolation facility or into a private hospital who cooperate and partner with us in looking after these patients. These patients remain well, but are still awaiting their test results to turn negative before they can, in fact, be released back into the community. 47 patients, in fact, have been released from isolation, and they remain well where they are at home. As Minister has mentioned, 5 patients have passed on, and we announced the death earlier this morning of one of our patients. We expect cases to continue to increase with each day. This is more related to infection and exposure from either imported cases or from others who had been in the community before we imposed our first set of safe distancing measures. And it will take time for these safe distancing measures to take full effect. The expansion of our safe distancing measures is a precautionary step. It is designed to further reduce public circulation, to reduce the opportunities for people to interact closely, and therefore to reduce the risk of person-to-person spread. Our review and revision of our mask policy is intended to supplement and enhance the safe distancing measures that we've put in place. The use of masks is not a separate policy and intervention in itself. Our recommendations concerning mask use are risk-based and evidence-informed, and it relates to our understanding of what the risk of community spread is and our understanding of what the mode of transmission is in Singapore. And as been mentioned, we will continue to prioritize the use of surgical masks for healthcare workers who need the mask to protect themselves as they dedicate their time and energy towards looking after those of us who are ill, and particularly those of us who are infected with COVID-19 infection. For members of the public, our priority next is to protect those who are vulnerable. Our seniors who are more susceptible to infection, and if infected, may in fact have poorer outcomes because of the many different medical conditions that they may have. And therefore, we would encourage them to wear masks if they need to come out of their homes and be in contact with others. We understand that there are also frontline workers who are involved in the provision of essential services, and in their daily work, they may have frequent contact with other people. And where they also cannot avoid close contact with others, we will allow them to wear a mask. In all other settings, we understand that there may be spread of infection from those who have minimal symptoms or mild symptoms. And therefore, to protect others, we encourage those who are in this setting to wear a mask, again, if they're coming out of their homes and if they are not able to avoid contact with others. In this setting, the wearing of the mask is to facilitate you going to see a doctor. Please do not go out wearing masks as an excuse to continue to engage in social interactions. It is important that you see a doctor and obey the doctor's instructions. Don't go back to work if you're sick. Our measures reflect our determination to continue to isolate and control the spread of COVID-19 in our country. At this time, while there is some community spread of COVID-19, this is not still widespread. We still have an ability to isolate, to contain, and to control further transmission. It is important, therefore, for us to remember that we have not lost control of the situation. We remain determined to stem further transmission, and the safe distancing measures that we put in place are designed to allow us to do so.
Thank you. I'll now invite Minister Ong Ye Kung to talk about the measures that will be introduced for the schools.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kim Yong. I'll talk about schools and our plan. We have been, of course, implementing many precautionary measures in schools, as well as our IHLs, Institutes of Higher Learning, over the past few weeks. As I always have said, and many scientists have said, if the virus behave more like influenza, affecting children more and making children the vectors for transmission, we would have closed schools long ago. But COVID-19, because of the way it behaves, it gives us the option of keeping schools open, provided there are stringent precautionary measures, and that has been what we are doing. So by keeping schools open, this prevented a major disruption to people's lives, especially our frontline workers, our healthcare workers, especially children from families which are more vulnerable and don't have home-based support for their education. It also avoided the situation where school closed and students, especially the teenagers, start roaming around the community, exposing themselves to more risk. So keeping school open, keeping it safe with precautionary measures has been a plus in this fight against this virus. I saw a Straits Times report yesterday that gave some data on infections of students, so I thought I'd report some of the infection figures as of end of yesterday. Say preschool, 5 infections so far. Number from overseas sources, that means they traveled, 2. Number from family members, 3. Number of infection from the school, none. As for schools, primary, secondary, and JC, we have 5 infections as of end of yesterday. Number from overseas sources, that means the child traveled, 1. Number from family members infecting the child, the student, 4. Number of infection from school, none. IHLs, we have 48 infections. Number from overseas, they went overseas, many of them on internship coming back. Number from overseas is 38. Number from family members from their homes, 5. Number from work, because they were on attachment, 1. Number from social activities, 2. Number from campus, including the hostels, none. So as of now, I think our track record in keeping schools safe has not been too bad. And really, I need to thank teachers, parents, students, all stakeholders for working so hard, being so understanding, cooperating with our precautionary measures to keep school open and keep schools safe. But never be complacent, never let our guard down. When there's widespread community transmission, chances are there will be transmission in schools, and we must always be prepared for that. Many parents have written to me over the past weeks. Some signed petitions to request for school closure. And I've been doing my best, together with my team, to explain that schools can be kept safe and kept open. But I've always explained to the parents, we do not rule out moving to 100% home-based learning. But if we do, it must be done at the right time and for the right reason. But in preparation for this possibility, we did a 1-day home-based learning this week for every student. So Wednesday was for primary school, yesterday was for secondary school, today is for all JC students. So every child, every student had a chance to go through home-based learning this week, including their teachers too. And that process this week helped us solve many teething problems, solve the technical glitches. We loaned out almost 4,000 devices to students who don't have devices at home. We loan out also many dongles for students who don't have Wi-Fi at home. And we have some corporate sponsors, which I must thank them for that. And parents who perform essential services such as healthcare or without childcare support at home they register with the schools, and this week they are able to send their children to school even during the home-based learning day. And so while the children are in school, there's proper supervision as well as safe distancing and precautionary measures. And I think overall, the exercise this week went smoothly. And with this new national posture and the need to implement a national circuit breaker, it is now time, and with the right reason, for us to move to full home-based learning for schools. This coming week is a short week for most because Friday is Good Friday, and Thursday and Wednesday and Thursday is already home-based learning for many students. So actually it's a short week. We will take Monday and Tuesday to sort out the remaining administrative and technical issues, and from Wednesday, 8th April onwards, we will move to full home-based learning for all schools. And it will last until 4th of May. So excluding the short week next week, it's a 3-week stretch until 4th of May. Now let me explain why it is now the right time and for the right reasons. Because we are implementing a national circuit breaker policy, and schools is an important part of it. It will help us move towards a position where we can enhance safe distancing, cut down social interactions significantly, and reduce transmissions. With the home-based learning experience this week, we are also confident that we can cover the curriculum properly and in time, and our assessment so far, there is no need for us to claw back from June holidays. So the June holidays are so far intact. And with the new measures, most students are required to stay at home, so there's also less worry that students will roam around and mix around in the community, exposing themselves to more risk. And because telecommuting has become the default for parents and for workers, plus school remains open to those who need support, we can manage the disruptions to lives. I know many students and parents will be concerned about exams. To reduce the anxiety of students, we'll do away this year all mid-year school exams. Many levels already don't have mid-year school exams, so we will just do away with the rest. And that also helped us claw back 3 weeks of teaching times for the relevant levels. But national exams, they will be considered just like most workplaces will close except essential services. School will no longer open, but national exams will still considered be essential, and they will continue. So there's mother tongue language examinations, oral and written, that's on the 1st and 2nd of June. Those will proceed. Numbers are not huge. We will decentralize the teaching, the sitting with safe distancing, and that can continue. PSLE, O-level, N-level, A-levels, these are year ends, so we don't need to worry for now. But we'll monitor the situation, and if need be, we make adjustments. Take, for example, if curriculum teaching is compromised, some topics can be taken out of the exam papers, and during marking, if knowledge in that topic affects how you answer the question, marking will also be more adjusted to be more lenient in those cases, and if really need be, apply special considerations during grading, and we have done this before. For preschool, kindergarten care, and student care centers in schools, we take a similar approach. Remain open for parents that need the support, and then with proper precautions, we keep out staff and students with any symptoms, and then with safe distancing. Now let me move on and talk a little bit about IHLs, Institutes of Higher Learning, and these are universities, polytechnics, and IT. For the AUs, the autonomous universities, they will go 100% online lessons. Exams continue, but exams are all online now, all convert to take-home assignments. So there's no more sit-in physical examinations. Many of the universities have also changed grading to pass-fail, but for students who like a GPA, they can request for it. It can be converted to a GPA, and some universities have also decided to defer credits so that students do not have the pressure to complete all their credits for this semester. Polytechnics and ITE, School is reopening for them. They are currently on their year-end holidays, academic year-end holidays. They're opening soon, in the next 1-2 weeks. Again, for new batch of students going into Polytechnic first year or going into ITE first year, it is also essential for them to come to campus, get themselves registered, and get themselves locked on to the online learning materials. So it's essential for the new batch of students to come to campus, register, get equipped, and start their online learning. So onboarding for these students will start next Monday. And students will come in small groups, spread out throughout different times of the day, across different days of the week, and steadily, progressively get themselves on board for their education. I must be honest and say this situation with a lot of online learning, home-based learning, is far from ideal from an education point of view, because we know that education is holistic. It's really not just about covering the curriculum. No, that's the easier part. Education is a social process and a social journey. But we must make the best out of it, given the current situation we are in. So for all students, now that you have some reprieve in terms of your mid-year exams and have to stay home, try to learn outside of the syllabus, read widely, find the curiosity in you, find what subjects, what areas you are passionate about. Now's a good time, next 3 weeks, to ponder over such issues. Share with your family all the things and personal hygiene tips and habits that the schools have been teaching you. Bring it home, whether it's washing your hands, not how to wash your hand, don't touch your face, wipe down routine, checking your temperature, checking your symptoms. All these are things that schools have been teaching you. And so bring it home and share it with your parents. There are many teachable moments as well as the nation go through this crisis and dealing with this virus. Bring those lessons home too and talk to your family about it. As for schools, not the most ideal situation, but find opportunities within this situation, new ways of schooling. One particular area is that we now have students with lesser home support, some with no support, who are going to be with us for the next 3.5 weeks. So let's do more to help them, to uplift them, mobilize our resources differently to make a difference to them in this 3.5 weeks. So stay safe, stay home, stay curious. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now ask Minister Chan Chun Sing to talk about workplaces, our essential services, as well as essential supplies. Chun Sing.
Thank you, Kim Yong. I will cover 3 parts. 1, the measures for our businesses and workers. 2nd, our supply chains. And 3rd, the mass collection exercise that we will commence this weekend. Let me start with the first on the measures for our businesses. Let me say that our measures are aimed at minimizing transmission at the workplaces and to significantly reduce the need to commute to and fro from our workplaces. I want to emphasize that this is not about business closure. This is about closing the premises for the duration in order for us to adopt the enhanced safe distancing measures. Now, this distinction is important because many businesses will still be able to operate. As PM has said, all essential services will continue to operate. Let me list down the following essential services that we can expect to see continue operations. First, all healthcare and social services. Second, all food-related services. Third, energy. Fourth, water and waste management and environmental services. Fifth, all transportation, storage, and logistics services. 6. All information and communication services. 7. All security operations. 8. All facilities management and critical public infrastructure. 9. Manufacturing activities that are essential to our security, sustenance, and safety. 10. All banking and financial services. A number of other services, including hardware stores for repairs, pet supplies, vehicle recovery, will also be allowed to continue operations. However, all these businesses will operate with the core essential staff and are expected to comply with the strict safe distancing measures. Let me also say that all the related supply chains to keep the essential services functioning will also be allowed to continue. Our agencies will proactively inform the firms that provide essential services if they have not already done so. Other companies can contact us for clarification and assistance as necessary. We will set up a hotline from tonight to take queries from the business community. The hotline will run from 8 p.m. until midnight tonight and begin operations again at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. The number to call is 6898-1800. I will put all this information on the website after the news conference. There is also a website for businesses to go to get more information and to provide the details required and to submit appeals as necessary. This website will be covid.gobusiness.gov.sg. covid.gobusiness.gov.sg. All businesses that can be done from home, all operations that can be done from home without the need to commute will also be able to continue. Businesses that are critical to the functioning of the global supply chains will also be able to continue. For example, companies that are involved in the manufacturing of semiconductor, biopharma, petrochemicals will be allowed to continue. And likewise, their associated supply chains will also be allowed to continue. Business operations like construction that require some time to wind down safely will be given a short grace period to do so over the next few days. We are aware that some business operations will be reduced and ceased for the time being. Let me now invite Minister Josephine Teo to say about the measures for our worker before I continue on the supply chains. Jo, please.
Good evening. How will the closures of work premises affect workers' livelihoods? I'm sure this is at the top of our workers' minds. If business is still operating fully, the employees should continue to get paid. But there are also instances where business operations must be reduced or ceased as a result. Here, I would like to assure the workers that MOM, MTI, and MOF are working very closely to enhance the job support scheme for our local workers so that employers can continue to pay them. Now, the details will be announced by Deputy Prime Minister Heng in just a few days. That takes care of local workers. What if employers also have foreign workers whom they need to retain so that businesses can restart smoothly after this break? In the past, the government has said no to waiving foreign workers' levies. But the next 4 weeks are exceptional, so we will look into it. We will also consider if employers need temporary help to ensure they have the essential workforce to restart. We appreciate that employers and workers will be making many adjustments. Quite a few have already made the switch to get their staff to work from home. For the other employers, we will do whatever we can to support them as they work out their responses. Of top priority is for all employers to communicate properly and clearly with their employees on work arrangements in the next few weeks, and also how colleagues can keep in touch with one another to provide mutual support. We hope our employers can focus on that. They can reach out to Ministry of Manpower to seek clarifications through our contact center, which we will keep open throughout this weekend at the usual hours. The number to call if they need to is 6438-5122. We will put out further information on this.
Thank you, Joe. Let me now move on to the second part to reassure Singaporeans on the integrity of our supply chains and our food supplies. All supermarkets, wet markets, hawker centers, and food establishments will remain open. Let me say that again. All supermarkets, wet markets, hawker centers, and food establishments will remain open. Our supply lines and our supply chains are intact at this moment and will continue to function smoothly. There is no need to rush to the supermarkets to stock up, as this will only cause disruption to our logistics system. We can continue to purchase our essentials and groceries as usual during this period. The supermarkets will continue to operate at their usual hours. Please purchase responsibly and consider those who are more vulnerable amongst us. If we don't run on the supermarkets, we will be able to get all our supplies as per normal, and the stock and the shelves will be progressively restocked as usual. For all food establishments, they will continue to operate. The main adjustment will be that there will be no more dining in. Takeaways and food delivery services will also continue. If there's one thing that I can ask fellow Singaporeans' cooperation is this. If you are going to do the takeaway to tapao, bring our own clean containers where possible to help our food establishments conserve their packaging materials and for all of us to be more environmentally sustainable. Now let me move on to the third topic on the reusable mask collection exercise. We have planned for this for some time, and this is why we have the ready stock in our country. Fellow Singaporeans might have also noticed that in the last few weeks, we have started selling reusable, washable masks at various of our supermarkets. In order to ensure that all families would have access to a reusable mask, the People's Association will commence the distribution of reusable masks to all Singaporean residents from Sunday, 10 a.m. onwards. We will conduct the exercise from Sunday, 5th of April, till the following Sunday, 12th of April. For all weekdays, residents will be able to collect their masks from 3 to 9 p.m. daily. For all weekends and public holidays, the collection can be done from morning 10 a.m. to evening 9 p.m. All the collections will be done at the respective CCs and RCs. And I think fellow Singaporeans are familiar with the collection exercise that we have done some time back. For all the collection, we will have priority queues for our seniors so that they do not have to wait too long. and we hope that fellow Singaporeans will also allow our seniors to collect their masks first. Each housing block and precincts will be informed progressively. Singaporeans can refer to the website www.maskgoware.sg or the CC and RC's notice board for more information on when and where to collect their masks. So let me say that again, www.maskgoware.sg, or look out for the notices at the respective notice boards at the lift lobbies for the HDB flats. So let me pass back to Kim Yong.
I should also let you know that I have another colleague of mine at the press conference, and he's Desmond Lee, and I will invite him to say a few words. Desmond, please.
Good afternoon. The health and safety of our preschool community and our colleagues and clients in the social service sector are of paramount importance to us in these challenging times. And we've been working closely with both sectors to progressively put in place safe distancing measures to ensure the well-being and health of our teachers, our children, our social service professionals, and our residents and clients at different facilities. And with the enhanced distancing measures, we're going a step further to make sure that our families, colleagues, and clients are kept safe and kept well, while ensuring that Singaporeans with critical and urgent needs continue to have access to support. To safeguard the well-being of our preschool community, our students and our staff, we will be suspending general services of all preschools and student care centers from the 8th of April to the 4th of May. Parents should keep their children at home during this period. Many preschools have home-based learning resources to support parents during this period. The Early Childhood Development Agency, or ECDA, is consolidating resources developed by various preschools to a single website for parents' convenience, and we will share the link with parents next week. ECDA will automatically waive the minimum attendance requirement for preschool subsidies in April, while MSF will waive the minimum attendance requirement for the student care fee assistance subsidies in April. In essence, all subsidies for preschool and student care will continue to be disbursed during this period. But preschools will remain open to serve parents who have to continue to work in the essential services and who are unable to find alternative caregiving arrangements. And these would include those working in services like in healthcare and in other services that Minister Chan had articulated earlier. Priority will be given to children of healthcare workers, children of low-wage or daily wage workers, as well as children from vulnerable families with no support. Parents should contact your child's preschool for further assistance. And for primary school-going children enrolled at various student care centers, parents should approach the child's primary school for further assistance. Now, during this time, MSF will suspend or reduce non-essential and non-urgent services. But the following services will remain open. Our social service officers, or SSOs, will remain open so Singaporeans in need can continue to get social and financial assistance with the appropriate safe distancing measures put in place. And these include the Temporary Relief Fund, or TRF, the COVID-19 Support Grant, or CSG, as well as other ComCare assistance schemes. Now, on Wednesday, applications for the Temporary Relief Fund, or TRF, began. And so far, about 60,000 applications have been submitted by Singaporeans. My colleagues at the SSOs and from the CCs under the People's Association are working hard to get affected Singaporeans the support that they need, and I seek everyone's understanding during this time. Applications are open for the temporary relief fund until the 30th of April, and there is no need to rush. With the latest measures in place, we will step up safe distancing for the application of the temporary relief fund in the following ways. First, we will be launching an online application form next week and an online system to reduce the need for applicants to travel out to apply. We will provide more details soon. Second, for those people who feel that they still need to attend physically, to obtain and to fill in forms, they can continue to go to the SSOs and community centers, but we'll provide the forms for them to take, to fill in at their convenience and time at home, and a box for them to drop off. There will be assistance provided on site for those applicants who find difficulty in completing the forms or who have further queries or need for further assistance. Second, residential homes will continue to serve our vulnerable, including our seniors, persons who are destitute, persons with disability, and children and youth under statutory care and rehabilitation. MSF services and funded social service agencies involved in crisis interventions for serious, high-risk and urgent cases will also continue to operate. These include cases of family violence, child abuse, self-harm, and self-abuse. The National Council of Social Service, or NCSS, is helping our members build up their capability to provide services using technology and remote means during this time. They will continue to work closely with our social service agencies and charities that provide important services to support the day-to-day living of vulnerable Singaporeans, such as food support, and to ensure the continuity of their services. And while these measures will cause inconvenience, they are necessary to protect everyone's health and safety, and we seek your understanding and cooperation on this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have established video links with the media, and now I will be happy to invite the media for questions.
Thank you, Ministers. We'll start with the first question. First question from Si Hui, Channel News Asia. Please state your question.
Hi, this is Si Hui from CNA. I have three questions. The first one is, how do we assess the success of the circuit breaker? Secondly, will contact tracing be continued? Because previously it was mentioned that contact tracing will stop if there is widespread local transmission. And if it is, how will it be ramped up manpower-wise? The third question is to Mr. Ong Yi Kang. In terms of graduation, the autonomous universities, does that mean that students will be graduating later? And what about graduation ceremonies?
Thank you. Our contact tracing efforts will continue. We are continuing to ramp up our capacity for contact tracing, and we have enlisted the help of police as well as the SAF, as well as other manpower resources to allow us to continue with the efforts of contact tracing despite the increasing number of cases. And contact tracing will continue to play a very central role in our efforts to contain and to manage the outbreak of COVID-19. But what is also important is to ask for the support and cooperation of Singaporeans with regard to our safe distancing measures, because if we are able to keep the safe distance with one another, this will reduce the risk of transmission and will help to slow down the transmission and will allow us to have greater capacity to contact trace whatever cases we see. So contact tracing will continue, and it is important for us to adhere to the safe distancing measures so that the contact tracing will be easier and more effective. Now I ask Minister Lawrence Wong to talk about a circuit breaker measures.
The question was, how do we define success? And I think when we look at all the measures that we have put in place, the key objective is to reduce the spread of the virus within Singapore. So what we would like to see as a result of all of these measures is a slowing down of the number of local cases a reduction in the number of local cases, particularly in the number of local unlinked cases. So those are the key indicators that we watch out for. And again, as I said, if we are all disciplined in continuing with these measures, coupled with the fact that we are doubling down on our contact tracing efforts to identify, ring-fence infected clusters, quarantine people who are close contacts. With both moving in parallel, we have a chance of bringing down the number of local cases significantly and reducing the number of unlinked cases. So all of this, in the end, is, as we said, it really comes down to a national effort. This is no longer the work of government alone. It's no longer the work of contact tracers alone. All of us must now do our part to slow down the spread of the virus.
Thank you. Before I pass on to Minister Ong, perhaps I should also add to clarify that over the next 1 to 2 weeks, we may still see a number of cases increasing because the measures that we put in place today will actually have an effect only after 1 or 2 weeks because the infection has an incubation period. Some of the cases that we see today are in fact infected a week or two before. So even if we started the measures today, it will take 1 to 2 weeks before the effects can be seen. What that means is that over the next 7 to 14 days, we may still continue to see cases, but we need to double up our efforts in safe distancing to slow down new infections that may occur over the next 1 to 2 weeks. Minister Ong.
Thank you for that question. I mentioned earlier that exams, we were treated, or graduating exams, national exams, we treat it as essential. So it will carry on, but is carry on now for the university online or take-home assignments. I said that, and I should have elaborated, is that it is because graduation is essential, a major milestone of the students' lives. So therefore, with this format, they will graduate on time. But graduation ceremonies are not essential for now. So with our advice that everybody should stay home, there shall be no graduation ceremonies. But I hope in time to come, when this is all over, we can still properly mark the milestone of their lives.
The next question is from Timothy Goh from the Straits Times. Please state your question.
Hi, thank you. My question is, why is the start date of the new measures April 7th? Might this not cause a rush for people who still want to eat in restaurants, etc.? Secondly, what does it mean that most workplaces will close? Will they break any laws if they refuse to close by the designated date? Thirdly, based on our home-based learning experience on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, how many students are likely to need to go to school when the full home-based learning starts next Wednesday? And finally, with all this in place, I have to ask, is there a further set of measures you can put in place, the equivalent of, as we've been saying, DORSCON rate at this point? Thank you.
Thank you. Could you repeat your second questions because we couldn't hear it clearly?
Sure. So my second question was on workplaces. When you say that most workplaces would close, what does this mean? Will they be breaking any laws if they do not close? And what are the penalties?
Thank you. Let me say first categorically that we are not in DORSCON red. And currently we are in DORSCON orange, and all the measures that we mentioned were measures that we can introduce during DORSCON orange, and we will continue to do so. And these measures will help us to slow down the transmission and slow down the number of cases, and this will help us avoid having the need to go to DORSCON red. At the same time, we also have further measures that we can introduce, and we will have to look at the situation, how it evolves. As I've explained before, our response is always based on the situation which continue to develop, and we will monitor the situation and decide what else do we need to do in time to come. But currently, this set of measures are very significant measures. This is a very important step that we are moving forward. In fact, we understand that this set of measures already will create significant inconvenience and disruption to daily lives, daily routines. And we ask Singaporeans to bear with us and support these measures, observe the spirit of these measures, and that is to really increase the safety distance between individuals. We know human beings need a social contact, but for the next 4 weeks, please help us by maintaining social distance so that we are able to slow down the transmission significantly. I think that's the key objective of the measures that we are putting in place today. So I'll ask Minister Wong to talk about the safe distance measures.
Well, there was a question on the start date and whether having a later start date will lead to a rush for people dining in, right? Well, so the basic point is the start date kicks in a bit later, giving people, workplaces, businesses time to adjust. But even between now and the start date, all of the high level or the stringent safe distancing measures that we are already operating still remains in place. So restaurant seating would still be 1 meter apart strictly, right? There is no compromising on that. And all of the measures that we have talked about, no gathering of people above 10 persons, all that remains in place. Right? So we are continuing with this stringent set of measures, and then when the effective date kicks in, there will be no more dining in. That applies even to hawker centers and coffee shops. So all F&B establishments will no longer have dining in and will only allow takeout. And everyone will then have to make adjustments, including Singaporeans. So we do need some time for people to make these adjustments. And we once again remind everyone to adhere to the spirit of the new measures, right? It is really about each one of us doing our part to significantly reduce the number of social interactions we have. Typically, if you think about your own experience, a person would have perhaps 20 or more contacts with others besides their immediate family members, easily, right? You go out, you sit down, you're in a coffee shop, you go to your workplace. This cannot continue under our heightened posture, under this new phase of a national circuit breaker. All of us have to reduce our contacts significantly, limiting it only to the people who live around us. And if we all do that, as I said, we have a chance then of gradually bringing the virus under control.
I'll ask Minister Josephine Teo to respond to the question on the workplaces.
Previously, we had said that we want all businesses to try and get their employees to work from home. And we had said previously, 100% is better than 80%, 80% is better than 60%. In other words, previously, we accepted that in some instances, at the work premises, there would still be maybe 10, 20, 30, 40% of the workforce still there. With this enhanced set of safe distancing measures, all of the workplace activities will have to come to a stop, meaning that everyone will have to work from home, and at the work premises, there will be no one. And what that will mean is that in some instances, where it is possible for all the employees to work from home, then the business can continue to operate fully. Otherwise, the business operations will have to be reduced or to cease completely. Now, this will be the case except for essential services. And all the essential services have been described earlier by Minister Chan Chun Sing, and Minister Chan has also explained how some businesses that could be part of the strategic set of activities in our economy and want to seek special consideration, they can do so by applying to MTI. But for all others, unless you are able to get an approval to continue operations at the workplace, it will be an offense to still have operations at the workplace. So if there are companies out there that are still not clear about this, please contact MTI or MOM, either agency will be able to give you a clarification. Thank you.
Minister Ong will respond on the question on schools.
Yeah, I think the question was how many students do we expect that will still come to school under the watch and supervision of the teachers. Based on this week's experience, it ranges 10 to 50 students per school, thereabouts. But next week, Monday, Tuesday, we'll sort out the numbers further. I do know some parents this week, they purposely took leave so that they could be at home watching their child do home-based learning. They can't keep taking leave if they work in essential services. And therefore, I expect next week, some of them may require the schools to look after their children and supervise them doing home-based learning. But some children, I noticed, they came to school because they don't have Wi-Fi set up at home yet. By next week, it may be set up, they don't have to come. So plus minus some, I think we'll be able to handle.
Next question.
Next question is from Stefania Palmer from Financial Times. Stefania, please state your question.
Yes, I have 3 questions. First of all, with regards to the new measures asking people to stay home and just go out for essential matters, etc., how will these be enforced? Will they be enforced? And would there be repercussions for those, for example, who go out not for essential services? What would that look like? The second question is, in light of the increase in the number of cases, are you taking steps to increase the capacity of the healthcare system via, for instance, increasing maybe the number of ICU beds or the number of ventilators at hand? If so, by how much? And the third question is, with regards to the point that was just made by the Manpower Minister with regards to it being an offence for work premises remaining open at this stage. Would the penalties remain the same as those announced earlier this week, which included potential stop work orders or fines? How will those be determined under these new rules?
On the first question, on the enforcement or how, first of all, we want everyone to take very seriously this new advisory and measures that you should stay at home and only go out for essential activities. The key is that if you go out to buy something, buy groceries, take away, then come back immediately. Don't sit around in the hawker center, in the coffee shop, and then continue to mingle in groups. So that's the key that we will be watching out for, and we will have enforcement agencies will be out and about, watching out for people who continue to gather in groups, even if it's less than 10, like I said. We don't want any such gathering in coffee shops, in hawker centers, in void decks, anywhere, in F&B outlets. These should not happen at all. So if you were to go out on your own or with a family member to buy something, to exercise, that's fine. But don't loiter, don't gather with people outside of your family members. And the enforcement agencies will be taking this seriously. If there are people who continue to breach these rules, then indeed enforcement action will be taken.
Thank you. There's a second question on healthcare capacity. Over the last few months, I've been explaining to the media as well as the public that we have been progressively expanding our healthcare capacity, both in terms of the ICU beds as well as the isolation wards for the COVID-19 related illnesses. But at the same time, I have to remind all of us that while we still have capacity to deal with, to manage the existing, the current number of cases that we see, we should not test the limit. And that is why we are putting in all these measures in place in order for us to continue to keep that buffer. And even if we have a physical capacity in terms of number of beds in ICU and in isolation wards, we also have to be mindful of the healthcare workers who have been working day and night, around the clock sometimes, forgoing their own leave, forgoing their own families in order to take care of these patients. So we must do all we can to minimize the number of cases that we see every day, so that we give more capacity to the healthcare system and give more leeway for our healthcare workers so that they are able to perform their task and they still have their family to look after too. I'll ask my Professor Kenneth Mark to add on if he has anything to add.
Yes, thank you very much. We have been expanding our capacity in many different ways, and we've been doing this in phases in anticipation for any increase in the number of cases in Singapore. Minister has talked about the expansion in ICU bed capacity, and we've done this through the conversion of various wards that we have in readiness in our hospitals. So we've in fact built that into the original design of all our hospitals to be able to expand that bed capacity. But it's also expanding our capacity in other areas, which includes our step-down care facilities. We've also been engaged with quite a lot of discussions with private hospitals, and they've stepped up very nicely to accommodate us, to support us in freeing up capacity to support the care of patients with COVID-19 infection. We anticipate that our private sector colleagues would continue to support us in many other ways, and this may also be in sharing the load in looking after our existing patients with chronic medical conditions who at this point in time would be awaiting further care as our public hospitals are devoted towards looking after COVID-19 patients. As we raise these bed facilities, we are also mindful that we need also to make sure that these beds are properly equipped, and we have been making ready some of our stock of additional equipment for this particular purpose, and we continue to procure additional equipment to ensure that our beds, as we raise them, would be ready to support any increase in the numbers. Manpower is also important, and we have in fact been progressively training more of our manpower to be able to take on these additional roles, looking after additional patients in an ICU or critical care setting. We have also been reaching out to healthcare workers who have had previous critical care experience, but now might be deployed in other roles, and we've invited them to return to the workforce or to these original roles, training them, providing them with refresher training to ensure, therefore, that they are fit for purpose as they eventually get deployed to these new assignments and responsibilities. So these are some of the measures we've taken, and we continue to take on additional measures as needed in anticipation for the increase in numbers that may come.
Thank you. Minister Josephine Teo.
The penalties are the same as that announced yesterday, but previously we said that even if you were not operating essential services, some activity could be allowed at the workplace if there was no way for those activities to be done remotely. But now we need all premises to close, and none of those workplace activities should continue. This is unless you are providing essential services or you have gotten a special approval from the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Next question.
Next question is from Nam Yun Zhou from Lianhe Zaobao. Yun Zhou, please state your question.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I have four broad sets of questions. First one regards to the cases. Because we had 10 clusters around there in the past week, so and also some transmissions actually traced back to more than a week back. So are we actually found wanting in contact tracing efforts and ring fencing? And also, is there any indication of prevalence of widespread community transmission? And one more thing regarding a specific case, the patient from the first patient from the Amoy nursing home. Do you have any indication where the patient got the virus from? Was it from a family member? So that's the first set. Second set is with regards to masks and mask supplies. So maybe could the minister give us a bit more on the thinking of why the government is changing its stance on whether or not to use masks, and because some people might feel that this will cause some confusion. And also, could we have implemented the measures we are announcing today any earlier? And also, do we have enough mask supplies? When would we possibly be able to have our own production of masks in the market. Anyway, the third set of questions is with regards to so many people working at home. Do we have enough data and data bandwidth to support all these operations? And fourthly, on a more light-hearted but nonetheless almost as important note, some of our readers have expressed concern whether Singapore pools will still remain open. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ask Professor Mark to talk about the cases that we are seeing in Singapore, both the clusters as well as a patient from Lima Moy nursing home. Then I'll ask Minister Wong to respond to the other questions.
We continue with epidemiological investigations and contact tracing, and in fact our efforts are not stopping in any way. We've in fact expanded our contact tracing capacity and capability through the support and assistance of both the Singapore Police Force and the Singapore Armed Forces. And they have made some preliminary breakthroughs in establishing links from time to time. But many of those investigations are continuing. We have some hypotheses in terms of how some of these clusters may have arisen. And as time goes on, as we can prove that these are indeed the links that have taken place, we will make that known to all of you. At this time, it's still our belief that while there is some level of community transmission, it is at a stage where this is still potentially controllable. We are able, we believe still, to cast a net wide to isolate and ring fence all of these confirmed cases as much as we can and limit further transmission. And therefore, it is not our assessment at this stage that we have widespread transmission to the extent that our ring fencing and containment strategies have failed. In fact, we continue to endeavor and continue to persevere to do so because we believe this will make a difference in allowing then the safe distancing measures to take root and allow these cases then to settle down. You asked about the specific resident who was a patient and a resident at the Lima Moy old age home. There have since then been several residents who have also been confirmed to have the infection, as well as staff members. From our investigations to date, it is a possibility, we have yet still to confirm this, but a possibility, then in fact, it might have been one of the staff members who might have been having some mild symptoms but continue to work, and then an opportunity through close contact in the home then have led to other residents getting that infection. But we continue to investigate to see whether this possibility is indeed true, and as we continue with our efforts to determine these links, we will again make that known to you.
Let me address some of the questions raised. First, on mask. We have always said that our guidance on mask is based on scientific advice and evidence. And that's why originally we started out by saying you only need to wear a mask if you are unwell. That is also the advice by the WHO. But we now are in a different situation because we are seeing new data, new information being put out, including evidence that infected persons with no symptoms may infect others, which means that you may not know whether you are well or unwell because an infected person may be carrying the virus but may well have no symptoms. And then even when they speak, droplets may spread, especially in close proximity to another person. That's why even the WHO and the US CDC are now reviewing their own guidelines. And similarly, we have been studying this for some time. And on top of the new evidence, we are also in a different situation in Singapore today than before. Before, we didn't have community spread of the virus. Now, we are seeing an increase in locally transmitted cases, and we are also concerned about possibly undetected carriers within our community. Right, so it's because of all of these reasons that we've decided the position on mask has to be updated, and now we have updated the guidance. we still want to conserve surgical masks for our healthcare workers because there is a global shortage of surgical masks. We are trying our best to replenish our supplies of these masks and also to build up some local capabilities, but still these masks have to be conserved for our healthcare workers. That's essential because they do need them in order to care for their patients. But for the general population, some form of mask, even a reusable mask, can serve as a physical barrier and can provide some basic protection. And that's why our advisory now is, first of all, don't go out, stay at home. But if you have to go out for essential activities and you cannot avoid close contact with others, that's the key. If you cannot avoid close contact with others, then wear a mask. And even there, in such circumstances, a reusable mask can offer some protection. So that's the thinking behind this change in guidance. On your other question, could we have put in place the measures earlier? In the end, it is a judgment call based on the global and local situation. Certainly, we could have done this very much earlier, but there is also a concern from medical experts and public health experts looking at all of these safe distancing measures, mitigation, the safe distancing measures that we're referring to. If you were to put them in place too early, there may well be fatigue. And when there is fatigue, people may not abide by the measures so well, and then they will not have their intended effect. So there is a case to think about when to implement them and to ensure that we implement them at the right time, right? For example, if we have put in place all the measures that we're talking about now, and we have put them in place much earlier, we may very well still be in the same situation today, with the measures in place 3 months later, right? And children will be no longer will be out, will not have schools for 3 months, even longer. So you have to decide, if you do it too early, there may be fatigue, there will be significant disruption to people's lives, and in the end, it may well be counterproductive. Even the timing that we have decided now, if you look at what other countries have done, we are doing this relatively early in our infection cycle. We have not reached a point where we are seeing many uncontrollable outbreaks, right? We are still in a phase where we are containing the virus. Many countries have moved to this set of measures that we have just announced only after giving up and abandoning containment, and then they decide, well, let's all go into this, stay-at-home orders. We have not given up on containment. In fact, we are still going all out to detect and contact trace every case, quarantine the close contacts, and try and stamp out every infected cluster. We are pursuing containment, but at the same time, we think it's necessary to do more with safe distancing, and that's why we are putting in place these new stringent set of circuit breakers in place, and both the contact tracing, the safe distancing work in parallel, and we have then a best chance of trying to control the spread of the virus. Finally, your question on Singapore pools and I think 4D outlets, they will be closed. They are not considered essential services.
Next question.
We have time for 3 more questions. Next question is from Shahida from BH. Shahida, state your question, please.
Hello. Hello, yes. I just want to ask, The livelihood of many will definitely be affected with this circuit breaker. So I just wanted to ask if there is any other further support or those that has been announced, whether they are sufficient, and what else can we expect? Also on schools, is there a limit on the number of students or that a school or preschool or student care can take, especially if their parents, there are a lot of parents in essential services and vulnerable groups in that school? Thanks.
So on the question of livelihood of the small enterprises and individual businesses, I'll ask Minister Chan to elaborate on. And for schools, Yi Kang will respond.
We understand that many of the businesses and workers will be under stress. As mentioned just now, DPM Heng and Minister for Finance will be announcing further measures next Monday to help our businesses and workers.
Yi Kang?
The number that each school can take. So first and foremost, two things. One, abide by the spirit of this set of measures, which is stay home whenever you can. Only when it is essential, when if it's no choice, you gotta go out, then you go out. Including, let's say you really have no choice, you are essential, you are a healthcare worker, and you got to go to work, you are in the front line, you can leave your child in school. Or you live in a fairly small flat with 4 or 5 children, and it's really, you are unable to cope, then maybe the school can also help you. So live by the spirit of this policy. This week is 10 to 50 per school. I think with that number is very comfortable. Third point is that whether you are at home or in school, the education actually is going to be roughly the same. Teachers are at home too. Teachers also have children to take care of. They actually log on, many of them log on and able to see all the children. They actually take attendance. They can even have a flag raising ceremony and say the pledge, and then go through the assignments, or go through the lesson, followed by assignments, followed by marking. So it is virtual, it's almost like Zoom. Yeah, we can use that kind of mode. So whether you are in school physically or at home physically, it will be the same mode of teaching. Yeah. But as I mentioned earlier, we do expect a fair number of children from more vulnerable families having to come to school. So I think take this opportunity, mobilize, harness whatever resources we have. Now that we have them for 3 weeks, slightly more than 3 weeks, let's see what we can do to especially help this group of children, help them uplift.
Thank you. Next question.
Second last question is from Faris Mokhtar of Bloomberg. Faris, please state your question.
Hi, Ministers. Just 2 questions. So what would constitute a DORSCON raid? Because based on your current guidelines, closures of workplaces and schools would come under DORSCON raid. So what is your current definition of DORSCON raid then in this unprecedented situation? And how far or how near are you to a lockdown? Because many Singaporeans would effectively see this as a lockdown.
Thank you. And under a DORSCON raid, we will have to expect to see many uncontrollable outbreak, and there's widespread community transmission, and there's very difficult to continue to do contact tracing and to do containment and quarantine, because we will just have to rely purely on safe distancing. So that will be the scenario where you are in DORSCON raid. As I mentioned, today we are not in DORSCON raid because we have not given up on contact tracing, we have not given up on containment, on quarantine. So we are in fact doing the opposite. We are stepping up our capacity in order for us to do contact tracing, to do as far as possible to ring fence the transmission, to contain it, so as to reduce the number of new cases, the number of unlinked cases gradually. So I think we are not yet in DORSCON raid, and we are quite a distance from DORSCON raid. We have to focus on the immediate tasks of increasing safe distances between among our population, and stepping up on our containment efforts through contact tracing and through containment. And it is important for Singaporeans to cooperate with us. Even as we do contact tracing, we will find that sometimes our patients are unable to recall their context, their history, and sometimes they also are not truthful in not sharing some of the context that they may have. This will hamper our efforts in containment and in contact tracing. So I would appeal to Singaporeans to help us, share with us openly, because this is a matter of public health interest. So we do want to get down to the bottom of all the information as much as we can, so that we are effective in our contact tracing. So I seek the cooperation and support of fellow Singaporeans. If you are one of the contacts that we are tracing, please help us and share with us who are your close contacts, so that we can be effective in contact tracing. Maybe I ask Prof. Mark to add on if there's on the issue.
Yes, DOSCON reflects our risk assessment as to what the local situation is like, and as what Minister has explained already. We look at the degree of community spread in the country, and we also look at our ability to control that spread within the community itself. So at this time, while there is an increased amount of community spread as opposed to 1 month ago, it is still a belief that this is a situation that we can potentially control, and therefore we are not making any plans at this stage to move into DOSCON Red. If we were to consider DOSCON Red, it would be in a situation where, because of our inability or failure to ring fence, isolate, contain, and prevent further community spread, then the thrust of our strategy changes towards some level of mitigation in order to make sure that our health system and its resources are sustainable in the long haul. And we are clearly not at that stage just yet. We will look at a variety of different parameters as we determine what that risk of community spread is. We look at the number of cases as they come on. We study the type of cases, whether or not they are potentially linked to existing clusters or whether they are unlinked. And as further investigations carry out, we look at our success at being able then to establish these links to these clusters. We look at our ability to prevent further spread even within a cluster to ensure therefore that there are no further transmission that occurs after we've made an attempt to ring fence and isolate. So these are some of the measures that we would put in place, some of the factors we look at to assess whether or not our containment strategies are successful, and they would also influence us as we assess whether there is a need in the future to move to DOSCON Red.
Just a quick response to the point about a lockdown and the question whether this constitutes a lockdown. In fact, even when we introduced the last round of measures last week, people were already asking us. In fact, I think some members of the media had asked, was that a lockdown? So rather than, use the phrase lockdown, and which means different things to different people, let's focus on the specific measures. And what we are doing today is a significant tightening on top of what we had just introduced last week, because we think this is necessary. But with these measures, we are not stopping all work. We are not shutting down the economy, right? Essential businesses will continue. We are not stopping people from going out if they really need to for work where it's essential, or to get their food, groceries, or even to exercise amongst their own family members. So there are clear guidance, rules that we have laid out, but it is certainly a very stringent set of measures that will impose more restrictions on people's movements. And so once again, we call on everyone to cooperate, to work with us, and to show in this time of crisis that Singaporeans can be resilient, can be united, and we all can be disciplined in doing what is necessary to protect ourselves and save lives. Just one question I realized I didn't answer on the earlier question on IT infrastructure, whether there would be a constraint. We did consider that, so we have consulted our colleagues at MCI, and they have assured us that we do have the IT infrastructure to cope with the increase in usage. And that's because we have invested over the years in significant infrastructure, including in fiber, broadband fiber into people's homes.
Thank you. Next question.
The last question is from Ka Yi from Channel 8. Ka Yi, please state your question.
Hi. Would like to check in total how many reusable masks will be given to our nations. And I understand that a lot of elderly, right, they might not be aware of personal hygiene. They might wear it like the whole day. So what's the guidelines? How often they should wash the reusable mask? Is it like every 4 hours or once a day? And will PA remind the elderly when they collect the mask?
Thank you. I asked Minister Chan to respond to the question.
For the reusable masks, we'll be distributing one to every resident in Singapore. We advise people to wear the mask, including the elderlies, when they go out of their home into a crowded environment. We recommend that once we come home, then we can wash it after being out. And then we dry it properly, and then you will be able to use it again the following day. By the way, I'd just like to add that when there is any doubt, the PA staff and volunteers will also be on site to help our elderlies and explain to them how to use the reusable mask when the collection exercise is on.
Thank you for joining us at this press conference. Thank you very much.
That was the Multi-ministerial Task Force announcing tighter measures in what they call the National Circuit Breaker to fight COVID-19. Now, just a summary, workplaces will be closed except those essential services and key economic industries. This will take effect from next Tuesday, April 7th. Second, Singapore will move to full home-based learning for schools and institutes of higher learning, or IHLs. This starts on Wednesday, April 8th till 4th of May. But essential services such as food establishments, markets and supermarkets, clinics, hospitals, utilities, transport and key banking services will remain open. Singaporeans also have to be prepared for these new measures to continue beyond a month if the COVID-19 situation doesn't improve. Today, Singapore has 65 new coronavirus cases, 39 linked to previous cases and 17 as yet unlinked. This brings Singapore's total number of cases to 1,114. Now we have Professor Teo Yik Ying online right now with us. He's the Dean of the Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health at the National University of Singapore. Now, for those of you who are watching us as well, if you have any questions for Prof. Teo, just ask them in the comments below our live stream. Now, Prof, let's start off with the first question. Now, PM Lee and the Multi-ministerial Task Force has asked everyone to stay home and only go out when absolutely necessary. Now, with all these new tighter measures, if everyone cooperates, could you explain for our viewers how do these strict measures work like a circuit breaker?
Well, essentially, if you look at what is happening now, we have closed schools. We have also closed the majority of the workplaces. And this actually restricts the number of people that are moving in the community, that are moving in public spaces. Let us look at both measures separately. At workplaces, the recent number of infected cases clearly show that actually a lot of community transmission out there happen at workplaces. You have the Keppel Shipyard cluster, the cluster at the Maxwell MRT station, the cluster at Singapore Centre. These are places that the public will go to, places that people work at. So you can either play catch up or you can plan ahead and break any transmission chains that are happening because people are going to work and getting infected. And by closing non-essential workplaces, the amount of people interacting in the community, in offices, public transportation, eating spaces, people have to eat when they go to work as well. These people interactions will decrease significantly. And it's very clear, with less people interacting, there will be less chances of any community transmission. The infection dynamics clearly show this. And very clever people using mathematical models have shown that this will be effective as a circuit breaker. Now, if I could also touch on the schools, actually closing schools, I must emphasize this is not a U-turn in any measures. The coronavirus situation constantly evolves, and our measure as a nation must change correspondingly. 2 weeks ago, after the March school holidays, The new cases were mainly from importations, especially from America and the United Kingdom. We put in place the measures. We isolate these returning travelers in hotels for 14 days. It is the same approach right now. Closing schools substantially remove human traffic from the public, from public transportation. Right now, we have been emphasizing that people ought to stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Closing schools as part of the circuit breaker for a period is aligned to the current measure, minimizing human traffic and density in public spaces.
Prof, I just want to touch in terms of the efficacy of these measures. Now, say all of us, we cooperate and we, practice these safe distancing measures. How long or short a period are we looking at for these measures to bear results?
So on this point, we have to be very pragmatic, and I think the minister have mentioned this as well. If we put in place, we will start this next Tuesday for workplaces, next Wednesday for schools. It is important to know that it will take a while to see the effect. It doesn't mean that within 7 days or 14 days, suddenly, miraculously, there will be no cases in Singapore anymore. I have to remind everyone that what is happening in terms of the number of reported cases that we see for the past few days really reflect the transmission that were happening in the public spaces in the community 7 to 14 days ago. So this tells us if we put in place the measures now, it will take a while for the measures to be effective. I must mention this because it is very important. These measures do not mean we will completely see zero transmission after 1 month. What we are doing effectively is to shift the transmission patterns from the community to the household. And when we do that, there will be people who will be infected because now people are staying at home, people are interacting at home. This is really where we have to come back to very basic principle. Because we spend more time at home, the transmission will come to the home, and people who are exposed and infected already but have yet to display symptoms, they don't know that they are infected, they don't know that they need to see to see the GP or to go to the hospital. They can infect others in the same household. And this is why everyone will still need to be responsible, even at home, monitor temperature regularly, cover mouth and nose when sneezing and coughing, and washing hands regularly with soap and water. One final point, my recommendation is that during this crisis moment, we may need to respectfully remind our elderly parents or grandparents that we may not be able to hug them as often as we do, be as physically close to them as before, but this doesn't mean that we cannot show our concern for them to continue speaking to them, checking on them, either via the phone or through a safe distance 1 or 2 meters across the whole living room. Back to you.
Of course, for those of you who are watching us right now, if you have any health-related questions for Prof. Teo, you can leave your questions in the comments section below. Now, Prof, I just want to move on to a very hotly debated or talked about online, the issue on mask or the matter on mask. Now, of course, earlier on, PM Lee as well as the task force has said the government is no longer discouraging people who are well from wearing masks. And wearing a mask may help to protect others in case you have the virus but don't know it. Now, this is so that you keep your droplets to yourself. What's your view on this, Prof?
So your sentence actually very rightly touched on it, that it is to protect others. First point that I want to make, that it is because if I'm infected and I cough and I sneeze, I'm projecting droplets from my mouth and my nose outwards to the public. And this is where having a mask, having a barrier helps to contain as much of that as possible. Now, I have to mention that in public spaces, I have seen people wear surgical masks or other forms of reusable masks, but when they want to cough and when they want to sneeze, they actually remove the mask, cough or they sneeze in public with no barrier, and then put that back on. That is not the point here. The point is wearing a mask, you have to continue wearing it if you're coughing or sneezing. On this point of mask, I'm very glad that the government highlighted the fact that there will be a distribution of reusable masks. Please take note, if you are feeling well, try not to use surgical masks. Worldwide, there is a global shortage of surgical masks out there. We need to keep the supply of surgical masks for the healthcare workers because they are in a high-risk environment. They are constantly exposed to aerosols or these droplets because in a hospital setting, patients are coughing and sneezing a lot. Our healthcare workers need to be protected. So the right approach here is when you get your reusable mask, please make sure that you use them, but equally important to learn how to wash them properly, how to take them off and how to wash them properly before you reuse them.
Right. Now, Prof, we have a question right here from one of our viewers, Ollie Q. Now, Ollie is asking, again, in relation to the mask, which is better protection from the virus, wearing masks or washing hands thoroughly? Now that the government doesn't discourage the wearing of masks, do you think people will become more complacent about other personal hygiene habits?
This is a very important point. So when you wear a mask, you are trying to protect others because you may be infected. How do you protect yourself? Protecting yourself, it is still back down to the very simple basics. People keep wondering, why is the government, why are public health experts always telling people just wash your hands? The reality is that when I cough or when I sneeze, if there are no people around me, the droplets actually will fall on surfaces like tabletops, like handholds, like door handles. And this is where if someone who is well touches these surfaces and subsequently touch our face or touch their own face, this is how one actually transfer a virus from someone who is infected to a surface to someone who is healthy and in the end getting infected through this dynamics. This is the reason why we remind people, wash your hands as regularly as possible with soap and water. If you are really in an environment you can't get access to soap and water regularly, easily, this is where hand sanitizers come in useful. But simple, basic personal hygiene remains absolutely important. It doesn't mean that because now you have a barrier, be it a surgical mask or a reusable mask, it means that now you're protected. Far from it. Your hands are still your most dangerous points. You have to keep washing them to minimize the risk, your personal risk of infection.
Right. I suppose also it's to prevent, and of course not to touch your face, right? Even you have your masks on. Now, Prof, many reports are also saying that the coronavirus hits the vulnerable groups the hardest, for instance, the elderly and those with pre-existing medical conditions. There seems to be a perception then that the younger people will not be so easily infected. What do you have to say to the young people and what advice do you have for them?
So presently, when people read what is happening elsewhere, a lot of global media actually focus on the number of deaths that had happened, and a lot of these deaths have unfortunately been affecting the elderly, the older people. And this has led to young people who thinks that because they don't have any pre-existing conditions like diabetes or any respiratory condition, because they are not old, they are very young and they're healthy, this has led them to think that actually they are immune or they are less likely to be infected. Even if infected, they are mild. I have to mention here, young people are not immune. And let me repeat this. Children and young people can equally be infected by the coronavirus, just like you, just like me, just like the elderly. I mentioned that they may suffer from milder forms of infection, but we have seen cases from China, from Italy, from Spain, and now from America of children and young adults with very severe form of infections. Some of them have died from it. So repeating this, children and young people can be infected by the coronavirus. They are not immune. That's why they have to take in mind the same kind of precautions and messages. You have to stay at home. When you're out, practice physical distancing and the need to practice personal hygiene. Wash your hands often, cough and sneeze with a barrier, and definitely cover your mouth if it's possible.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Prof, for the invaluable advice. Clearly, like you mentioned, it's important to stay at home, practice good personal hygiene, as well as if you're unwell, just stay at home. And that was Professor Teo Yik Ying. Now he's the Dean of the Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health at the National University of Singapore. For more on the announcements on the latest stepped-up measures to manage COVID-19, do log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman, and I'll leave you with this video from doctors and nurses on why you should stay home. Please have a good weekend and stay well.
Stay home, stay home, stay home.
Stay home.
Over the past few months, I've witnessed my fellow healthcare colleagues making personal sacrifices to get infected patients back to full recovery.
There are more and more unlinked cases, which means people are passing infection from one to another. I need you to keep safe, and I need you to stay at home, try not to go out. If you have to go out, stay 1 to 2 meters away from anyone.
Because by staying home, you have less chance to get infected, and if you're infected, then you have a less chance to spread.
Because many people are infected and infectious before they develop symptoms. So to protect others, we should try to minimize contact.
The next few weeks will be crucial in our efforts to contain the coronavirus. The healthcare workers, cleaners, contact tracers, all are doing our job for you. You, the public, can help us by staying at home. As the saying goes, we come to work for you, you stay at home for us.
Practice safe distancing. Stay home. Keep yourself safe.
Keep our patients safe.
If you really have to go out to public spaces, remember the following. Maintain good personal hygiene. Wash your hands often with soap and water. If you have to cough or sneeze, cover your mouth and nose and wash your hands after that. Take your temperature twice a day.
So please listen to medical advice and play your part to keep those who are unwell out of public spaces.
We work hard at the clinic to keep everybody safe. The rest of us stay at home and be safe.
We are working very hard at the front line, but we can't do this alone. We need your help. Help us stop the spread.
So please do your part and don't go out unnecessarily. If you have to, try not to touch anything, especially your face. Avoid crowds and wash your hands whenever you can. It will help to stop the spread. So please protect yourself and your loved ones.
This is a time for you to play your part for our country, our friends and loved ones. You are the most important defense in this war. Stay at home.
Stay at home as much as you can. Avoid social gatherings beyond your immediate family. If all of us can do this, we will succeed in overcoming the virus.